everyone, and welcome to the Gaming Corner podcast. I'm getting a sense deja vu, like we've been here before. Either that or we've got remakes on the mind. Let's talk about it. I'm your host, Jeff, and joining me today is Adam. Hey Adam, how's it going?
Pretty good.
Alright, and we've also got Daniel, aka Dance Warrior 777.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to the stream.
It's not a stream.
It's
this
not
is
a stream.
podcast, my friend.
Welcome to the
This
podcast.
is pre-recorded.
And we've
Damn
also
it.
got Henry. What's going on, man?
Oh, hi.
Oh, hi.
I didn't know that we're streaming. That's awesome.
Maybe in the
Hello,
future.
YouTube.
Maybe in the future. Guys, if
We've
you want
discussed
to,
it.
if you want us to stream these podcasts in the future, just let us know. And while I'm on that topic, guys, I just want to quick remind you guys that we are on YouTube at Volatile Upgrade, and we are also the Gaming Corner podcast on Google Podcast, Spotify, Stitcher, and a couple other sites. So feel free to go over there, check us out. And if you guys have any questions for us in upcoming episodes, let us know in the comments or in our Discord server. With that all being said, guys, it's good to have you here. Welcome to episode 8 of the Gaming Corner podcast.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it's great to be here, Jeff. Oh, man, it's wonderful. The chairs are comfy this time. Oh, man, we even have free
What do you
donuts.
mean this time? It's not like we're in the same place.
I don't know,
What are you
guys.
talking about? You guys have chairs? This is bullshit.
I don't know. My
You
chair
can
is
literally see us.
my chair is in need of an upgrade. You could say that my
Is it a volatile upgrade?
a volatile upgrade. You could say that my chair could use a remake. Speaking of
Your
that,
chair could use a remake.
speaking of that,
Flawless,
guys.
Jeff. Flawless
you
transition.
mean a
Let's go.
remastering? I hope it's not a remake.
So if our utterly graceful transitions didn't clue you in,
Guys, we're
This
talking
week we're
about
just-
remakes.
remakes, remasters, and reimaginings.
Exactly
So
correct.
of course, the first thing we have to do is sort of lay out some rough guidelines for what each of those things are. Are they different? Are they the same? If they're different, how are they different?
All right, I'm
Jeff,
gonna
take us
pass
away.
a definition past you guys, just to get us started here.
I have
Okay.
examples. I know. I saw
got
you
a-
collecting them
I've
earlier.
got a couple examples. So, remakes, remasters, and reimaginings are 3 different tiers of video games that I would argue are not original games for the most part. For the most part, they're based on a pre-existing game, hence the re in the name. Re is the Latin root for again. So, with that in mind, we have 3 different tiers. We have remasters, which I have the example of Uncharted Nathan Drake Collection on the PlayStation 4. This is a collection of 3 of the Uncharted games that were on PlayStation 3, remastered for the PlayStation 4 with higher resolution graphics and minor tweaks, just minor little tweaks that place it solidly in the remaster camp. For my remakes examples, I have The Legend of Zelda Ocarina of Time 3D and Spyro the Dragon's Reignited Trilogy on the PlayStation 4. So a remake, in my mind, is one that makes significant graphical, musical overhauls, but largely leaves the game pretty much the same. Say, for example, in Spyro, you're still exploring the same worlds that you did in PlayStation 1 games, it just looks a heck of a lot prettier. Music is reorchestrated. And again, minor tweaks to the gameplay, but for the most part, pretty much the same. And we have reimaginings. From this example, I have Ratchet and Clank on the PlayStation 4. The game based on the movie, based on the game. So a reimagining is one that's loosely based on the original game's format, but
On the original.
but
You
it
mean
makes
it's based
a
on-
completely different game out of it. It has revamped mechanics, re-overhauled worlds, definitely a different graphical theme. It's basically a new game based off of an existing one. So, gentlemen, there's your 3 tiers, your remasters, remakes, and reimaginings.
Well, I do want to say that the remaster remakes the line is very fine, blurry for video games, because remastered I believe originally referred to like movies where you'd have they still have the original film it was filmed on, like an analog film, which is much higher resolution than like when they put it into digital originally. And so they go back and they re-put that film into a computer. So it's the same original film. They're just bumping the res up on the digital copies. Interesting story about this. When they did the remaster for the original Sound of Music, that iconic shot at the beginning of it where it's like she's singing the hills are alive with the sound of music. And there's like the swooping camera shots as she's like on these grassy hills walking back and forth. Well, when they originally shot it, how they were getting those swooping shots was they had cameras and helicopters and they were making passes and they didn't take the first shot. So like they were making passes like a whole day or like a whole afternoon to get the right shots. And so this field that she's like running through that like in the movie is all these beautiful wildflowers and grasses is pasted flat mud by the time they got the shots they wanted because they'd just been going over it again and again and again with this helicopter close by. And so what they did in the very original film is they had artists come in and they essentially painted over the grass to make it look like grass and flowers and stuff on the ground, which was fine at the time because of the resolution you were getting on the copies. But when they went in and re-put it in the computer, the resolution on newer screens was enough that you could see the brushstrokes. You could see it was painted on. The grass was painted on to the ground. And so they had to go back and repaint on. They had to go back and digitally edit in grass, essentially remaster. So that's what they mean by remastering. They're not changing and they're not redoing it at all. They're just taking the old film and redoing it.
So basically what Nintendo did with the Super Mario 64 game.
No, that's a different thing. That's emulation.
Is it? I mean, I guess.
But that's essentially what they're...
let me walk through these one more time. So, Uncharted, they basically just took the games and up-res them. Spyro, they took the games from the ground up, recreated all the levels, overhauled the graphics and the music, enough for me to consider it a different category. And reimagining, basically a new game based on the old game.
The reimagining is definitely a separate category.
Yes.
I'm just saying that the Spyro thing is like the remake remastering line is very fine because is the Spyro technically a remastering? Yes, they had to pull it back together from the ground up, but essentially it's the same game. Those lines can get very fine is what I'm trying to say because there's
pick number 3, my lord.
But
no.
All right, Dan, what's up?
I think it's sort of a gradient. How much did they change, and then we kind of pick what we want to call it, a remastering or a remake.
See, this is why I got a notepad.
See, usually I think of a remake as the same game again with the same story and characters and worlds and levels, but overhauled with modern mechanics and modern graphics and mechanics and stuff. So it's function, it's the same sort of experience, and then a reimagining, they've went out and they're trying something new.
All right, what was your interjection, Dan?
Yeah.
Well, the first part of my interjection, where I just started laughing, was I said, this is why I have a notepad, because every time I get interrupted, I can just look back down at it and be like, that's what I was going to say.
Guys, he's
Which
learning.
What the notepad is. Bring
I've
notes.
had one the whole time.
I couldn't tell. He never let me speak. Anyway, what I was going to classify is the difference I feel between a remake and a remastering is literally the words themselves. A remake is just a redistribution of the game. There is no real mechanical upgrade. There's no additions added to it. A remastering is a sort of like a revival. So Spyro, the Reignited trilogy is, I do believe, a remastering because they went in and they redid all the graphics. But they also did it all from the ground up, and oh my god, I love the game so much.
Daniel, I think you've got them flipped. from how Jeff is describing them.
Well, yeah.
And I'm
Well,
pretty
when
sure
Jeff
that's
is-
how the industry generally describes them as well. But you're on the right track. Like you've got it in your mind which one is which, but
even
just
if
the names
even
are
if
flipped.
yeah.
So can we at least agree on this? Reimagining
No.
is very definitely its own category,
Yes.
and then remake,
yeah.
remastering, there might be some
You want to know
like that
what
might
a
be more
great example
arguable.
is?
That might be a little vague in there. There's definitely differences, but it's not as clear. But we can definitely split them into remake, remaster, and reimagining.
Yeah.
Okay,
Yes.
let's at least start with that. Okay, yeah.
Okay. Another huge thing I was going to say is whenever you say reimagining, I think the best example that comes to my mind that this might everyone here is just going to go, "Oh no." Alice in Wonderland. That reimagining.
Another good example from
That's a really good example.
from cinema is the new Star Trek.
All right, I'm not nearly as knowledgeable about all
That's
this.
true. That is true.
But I'm just giving examples of what a reimagining is in cinema. Versus
Man,
like
fuck cinema. We're talking about video games here, goddammit.
see, like in cinema, these three things are very distinct. A remastering is they're basically taking the original footage and re-releasing it with,
That's it. Yeah.
they maybe up-res it or they add like 2 more seconds of footage that wasn't originally there or something. Include the deleted, something like it's the same footage. A remake is they're doing the same movie again. It's the same script in essence with maybe a few tweaks, but it's probably like 20, 30 years later. You see this fairly frequently for like really popular movies.
Like Disney's.
Les Mis. Les Miserables. That's a really good example of a remake. Nothing changed. It was just an exact reproduction of it
Well,
later
that's
on.
different. That's moving it into film but no, I'm talking about like an old movie is done again with, like they've done this with all sorts of different movies, like there's like
Oliver.
3 different versions of it, like a really old one, a more modern, and they remake it. And there's little changes, but essentially the same movie again, just because it's very, very popular.
Lion King.
And then reimaginings are the
Laziest remake
Disney's
I've
are a
ever
little
seen.
different. Those are closer to reimaginings because they're moving them to a new, to live action, and they are,
I at the same time, I would have
and
to...
they're changing the script a lot usually.
I want to actually interject that. Changing the median does not make it a real reimagining. A reimagining is taking a core concept and then running it a different direction. Like changing Alice in Wonderland from
Allison in Wonderland.
Well, changing
Alice
it.
in Wonderland.
Yeah,
Alice is wondering.
It's the
She'd be
off-brand.
yeah.
There, a reimagining.
Guys, I'm gonna echo one of Henry's things though. Like we're talking about video games, guys. Let's reel it back in.
Yeah. Well, I was just trying to give
movies
examples of like where these
Yeah.
terms come from. It's from cinema originally, but yes, we should get into video games here. We're getting far off topic here. But
What do you think,
essentially,
Henry?
there's like
Where would you put the 3 different classes?
Man, they all suck anyways.
well, the
Nah,
remastering. Oh, sorry. Go.
I don't know. Their reimagings are like, I don't know. Are we just gonna say like what we think are those? Because honestly, the descriptions that you gave or the examples you gave are pretty
Well-
spot on for, at least for what we're going to be talking about for what each individual one is. But the remakes and remasters are very close and similar, which is going to be a fine line. So I don't know if it makes the discussion easier. We could probably have those be interchangeable to some extent.
Yeah, I mean,
well,
Because I don't think there's that many remasters out there. I think there's probably
Well-
more remakes and reimagings.
I think there's
Reimaginings.
quite a lot of what I would call remasterings. Where
well, you've got
essentially,
like the BioShock remasters, which are pretty much just going back into making the game prettier. You've got the Hitman 2 remaster, which
I mean, if they're
basically just
making it
upresses
prettier,
the game.
wouldn't that? I don't know.
well,
That make it a
how,
remake?
how about this
Yeah.
for how about this for remasters? But I would get like all the games that are being essentially ported up a generation or ported to Switch, that's essentially a remaster. They're moving it onto a new platform. Where you saw like a ton of remasters in cinema was when everyone moved from VHS to
cinema.
When everyone moved from VHS to DVD, they remastered a whole bunch of stuff for DVDs is what I'm saying. So like moving to the next, like if they're literally just taking the same game and moving it to the next console generation, that's essentially a remaster.
Yep.
So like,
and in my mind,
even a couple
Remake
console
is
generations.
basically a remaster with more effort put into it. Like a reimagining is less likely to fix a lot of the issues that the original game might have had. It's basically just taking it, putting it in a higher resolution and calling it a day. Whereas a remake is more likely to change little aspects of things, like the Crash Bandicoot and Sane trilogy changes the hitbox or changes how the first game deals with game overs. That, in my mind, qualifies that as a remake rather than a reimagining. But remastering. But like you guys have stated, remakes and reimaginings are pretty close to the point where they're kind of confusing. And reimaginings are just way out here and they're their own thing. Like the lines can be kind of blended between the remakes and remasters.
Mm-hmm. Well, I think the biggest the lines is essentially the line. I think the biggest thing is how much are they changing is really comes down to like it's like are they changing the like are they changing the story in any way? Are they changing the mechanics in any way other than just like making them fit whatever the new control schema is? Like if they're just making it prettier, but it's essentially the same world, just like you had an artist go over and repaint it, like remastered, a new master came in and painted over.
Okay. So
I think we're there. So let's get into the meat of this topic. We're going to run round in circles here for.
Okay.
Before you do, Dan sounds like he wants to say something.
Yeah.
Never.
So this crazy person just decided to do the weirdest thing of all.
Did you do Google?
And I googled the definition because remake, noun, a movie or piece of music that has been filmed or recorded again and re-released. Remastering, although this is the remaster definition on Wikipedia. Remaster, also digital remastering or digitally remastered, refers to changing the quality of sound or of an image or both of previously recorded material.
Yep, so that's pretty much what we were saying earlier.
So
I don't know, man.
That's what I
His
said.
source is Wikipedia. That's not a credible source that we've learned in school. So I think you need to find another one, bud.
Oh God!
All right,
Use Urban Dictionary. I think it's more reliable.
I think.
Okay, yeah.
I think we're pretty much. I think we're pretty much.
This is a very kinky way to remaster.
See,
Oh my goodness.
the problem here is that a remake for a video game is kind of hard to differentiate because like a remake in a movie is they're doing the same movie, but it's usually with different actors. Like they're re-recording, like they're refilming it. Well, a video game's all digital anyway, so it's kind of hard to that same process doesn't happen, which is why the line's a little vague. But
well, it sounds like we're pretty much in agreement where these three at least line up. So, as Adam said before, let's go ahead and move on to the meat and potatoes. Guys, what are the pros and cons of remakes and remasters and reimaginings? Let's start out with the pros.
So, did you have something to say? Or do you want me to? Can I go?
Go ahead.
This feels like what
I do want to say if we're talking about like true, like just remasters, just essentially up-resing it and popping it up to the next console. If there's no backwards compatibility, it lets you play the games again or continue or experience games years later that you really liked to begin with. It lets you, if there's a game that you play regularly for whatever reason, and you eventually your old console fails, you need to, you have to jump to a new console generation. Having it for that one is really nice. So generally they're they're fine. Like you would only get a remaster if for some reason like your original copy was no longer working, or
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Bringing it
Like-
to more consoles gives you more compatibility and more opportunities and options to play it. I definitely agree with that. That seems like the primary one to me.
Yeah, that seems like a perfectly reasonable like thing. They if their consoles are not backwards compatible, then
And just
just
go to
bringing
PC
them-
and everything's backwards compatible. I like where your head's at, Adam. This is a solid point. Now let's talk about the PC master race here.
Different episode, Hank. Different episode.
That was a good transition. I liked it. It was solid, clean.
It would be if that was our next topic, but it's not.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
I know.
yeah.
Not
So
yet.
and then I guess with remakes, essentially the like remastering in that case would be like they re-release it on PC, but they usually clump all the games in a series together, whatever, and they make a graphics pass to like bump the resolution of the graphics, make it look prettier, but it's essentially the same game, new wallpaper type thing. And that's that's fine. That's mostly for people who haven't played it before or whatever they're trying to catch or had it.
Catch them.
Those are fine. That's not a thing. And then remakes, I find can be kind of hit or miss sometimes. When they start changing a lot of things about a game, if the changes are if they're well done with a expert touch, someone who is a gentle and expert touch, they can be very good, but you're straying dangerously into messing with the nostalgia factor of a lot of like nostalgia factor sounds like a terrible thing, but like the ruining the gameplay experience by trying to change too much, and so you get this kind of weird thing where it's like this is like they've turned the bones of this game that I used to love into this weird monstrosity type thing.
All right. Well, it sounds like you hit a pro and a con there. Let's move on to Daniel here.
Yes.
What do you think? Any positives?
The positives and the negatives of remake, redone, and reuse. Well, it's interesting because now looking at the definition, the official definition of, well, as official as Wikipedia allows, of a remastering, it's just saying that it's sort of a restoration of quality, which if we go back in time to older versions of even music and video, the quality of the recording, the sound that would be emanated from it wasn't actually perfect because of the hardware and the technology being involved. So remastering music, changing it from a grainy, like badly recorded, I'd say cassette tape or record, and upgrading it to a digital copy has its pros and cons. Here, the pros of doing remakes and things like that is just it's allowing the preservation of older games.
That's a big one. That is a big one.
Which is a huge thing, because if we think about it, when we moved on to all these different consoles and whatnot during that time, there was a decent amount of doing remakes and try to move it forward. I mean, on the PlayStation, I have a Atari, sort of like an Atari collection of just 60 games. My gosh, those I was so young and I had no idea how to
So
play
young
half
and
of them.
naive.
So young,
Now
really
it's just
naive.
old and naive.
Indeed.
Pretty much.
So the remakes have been happening for quite some time. Now, when it comes to reimagining, hilariously, I have to go to my homeboy because I played part of this. Spyro is, I think, the first franchise that has had a reimagining, has had a remake, and I think has had a remastering of the same damn thing. Because we have Spyro, and then we have the Legend of Spyro, which was a reimagining of it.
Oh,
Which
yeah.
the gameplay was.
That's a
The
thing.
gameplay was Yeah, which the gameplay was different. Gameplay was different. It was kind of clunky, but it was fun. It basically turned it into a story instead of just a casual game. And then we had the remake of it because people enjoyed the original so much. But the reimagining was also really well done. But it didn't. But because of the fact it wasn't Spyro, it took so much of a serious turn. It off-put a lot of the people that had enjoyed the franchise because it felt like Spyro had been put into a different game. If you remember Banjo-Kazooie Nuts and Bolts.
Boy, that's
I wish I
that
did
was
If
so
you've heard
out
that
of their
review.
elements.
Oh my gosh, it was Banjo-Kazooie got turned into a car racing game. It
Yeah.
was so just... It's like when Crash Bandicoot... Well, Crash Bandicoot, when it
When they
became
did
a
racing,
racer,
though, that was good.
Yeah.
So, the way they did that was pretty well executed.
which was interesting because that's not really Crash Bandicoot.
No, I
But-
mean,
Mhm.
I guess you could think of it as like a party game instead of like a reimagining kind of thing.
What about
It's
Crash
it's
Bash?
Crash Bandicoot's
Crash Bash is
answer
100% a party game as well, but I'm just saying.
to those are Crash's
Right.
answers to Mario Kart and Mario Party respectively.
Yeah.
Like the same
Yeah.
kind of idea there.
Because they're
I
not
don't know-
really like canon with the story
Yeah.
of the game.
Those aren't really.
Right.
Yeah,
Those aren't
I don't think-
reimaginings.
Reimaginings. No.
those are like
But-
adjacent things. Like I have no clue what. Like they're in the
Spin-offs.
spin-offs. That's the word. Thank
Spin-offs,
you,
there
Jeff.
we
My
go.
brain's like
Yeah.
throwing sparks and spitting fire.
So, I think the main benefit for having the remakes, remastering, and the reimagining is to preserve the older era and then remarket it to the new era. That's it sounds so lame when I put it like that.
No, I think that makes sense.
But there's also in our earlier podcasts we've talked about people like remarketing something. I can't remember which podcast that was,
Probably episode.
but it brings
Well, whatever.
but it's
it's
that
back there.
just-
Just watch all of them.
it's like how the AAA
Good
believes
plug.
in instead of going experimental, believes in a safe formula.
Mhm.
Since they know that FPS, with guns, tried and true, the Call of Duty franchise just loved, just keep making games for it. Continually bringing back the old games to a newer setting is seen could also be seen potentially as a slight money grab. Now I'm getting to the cons though, so I'm going to stop and go to Henry. Henry, what is your feeling on the pros of remakes, reimaginings, and reducing and recycling?
Good for the
Fuck the
environment.
turtles. Nah, fuck the turtles.
Those turtles
I know.
like straws.
I like the idea of the remakes and the remasters just because of the fact of bringing older games to newer generation consoles. It's just for replayability as well as people being able to pick it up a little easier for kids and stuff. Reimaginings, same thing. It's interesting to get them into the universe that may have them go back to, say, the original games, which then allows more playability for the remakes and remasters. Then
That reminds me of the Star Wars, the newest Star Wars game. What was the Star Wars something order? That-
Fallen Order.
Fallen Order. Would that qualify as a reimagining of the
No,
story?
that's a
because
new
it
game.
crosses
And
over.
No,
Because it
that-
crosses over in the timeline with Darth Vader.
no, that's
at
just
one point.
that's just a new game. It's not a remake of any pre-existing game. It's a new game in the series or
That's
franchise.
getting complicated
Okay,
because that's
so-
an
so
enormous
it's a-
franchise with all sort of snarly bits hanging off.
So it's a reimagining
No.
of the Star Wars timeline.
No, it's
no,
just a new game.
It's just a new game. It's slotting into an old, like, the Star Wars timeline has dozens of books, 9 movies now? and
9, yes. 3
9
trilogies.
movies, a couple dozen books. Like, its storyline kind of is this giant mangled, tangled mess, and they're sort of jamming new things into it as they go along. It's not really remaking anything. They're just...
It's a new Mango Tango, boys. Come buy it at your local smoothie store.
Yeah, exactly.
But go ahead.
I like me personally. I would like to see more remakes than remasters for a lot of the older generation of games, especially like specifically remakes and not reimaginings. Just because I liked the story, gameplay, and what those games were before. If I was playing them, they can do reimaginings, but I would like to see a remake first of it, and then they could do like a alternative view play style for a story for it, how they think it should have been, or a different means to it.
That's interesting.
Specifically, like the Ratchet and Clank series, or the Ratchet and Clank, the new one that came out. I'm not too much of a fan of that one. I would much rather have had the original Ratchet and Clank as a remake on the PS4 for all of those games, which I have recently started looking at to hopefully play, which they do not have, and it's only that reimagining that they decided to make for PS4. And I'm incredibly sad about that.
You still have your PS3 though, right?
Yeah, 100%. I have the games for that. It's just
okay.
I wasn't thinking about, hey, maybe I should bring my PS3.
That's the remasters.
Yeah.
You want a remake.
Yes, I would like a remake on the newer consoles to be able to enjoy. I mean, a remaster would be fine as well, but at this point, the graphics, especially for the first one, have definitely become dated. But I can understand what they were going for the reimagining, which was the movie hype, and then trying to get more people into the franchise. But they don't have any other
chasing that didn't exist.
They don't have anything like, say you get into the franchise, you have to go back 2 consoles, 2 generations now to be able to play those games, because there's nothing on the 4 or 5 as far as I know. Could be wrong. 5 might have something.
There's a new game for Ratchet and Clank coming to the PS5, but it's a follow-up to the reimagining.
Well, that'll be interesting. We'll see how that pans out.
So what was that called? I forget.
Drift Commando?
Drift Apart.
Neat. So it's not even part of the original franchise. It's a whole new...
Yeah. Yeah. You can see it as basically being a reboot.
Okay.
That's essentially what a reimagining is.
Yeah. Reimagining reboots pretty close to the same thing. Sorry.
I'm fine with that, but I really would like a remake for it. That, or even like the God of War series. That would be cool to see a remake for instead of a remaster, because try going back to play that like PS2 era stuff, and it's just like a hot mess.
All right.
But I think it'd be a good way to get people back into playing the older games with nicer graphics, especially with how outputs for consoles have become, plus the accessibility. So
yep.
Yeah, it's a lot of good pros there, guys. Especially the accessibility of it, like getting more fans invested in a series. I think that's always a good thing. One of the points I want to make, I feel bad I didn't really come up with a pro, but I'm pretty much in line with you guys. So the good things about these 3 Re's is that it brings a beloved franchise into the modern era. Something I want to touch on with you guys, though, is that when bringing something into the modern era, it's all new, it's all like redone. How long is it new for, though, and how long before the remake needs a remake?
So that was actually kind of the point I wanted to make, or
do the remakes need another remake?
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say, like, what how can I say this? When does a game need one of the 3? Like,
when your in-game cinematics have much better graphics than your actual gameplay.
Yeah, basically, basically, it's like if it's just the next generation of consoles, or so, something like that. Like, so what's a generation? 5 years?
Between 4 and 7 usually.
Call it
5 and 7.
We'll call it 5 for easy math.
I like easy math.
So say a game or whatever is 5 years old. At that point, it probably just needs a remastering. Little touch up on the graphics, pop it into the next generation, and it's probably fine. But when you start looking at like 10 years, like 2 generations, 3, it's starting to get to the point where the graphics are so different that and like the controller probably might be a little different. Like there's so many more options and stuff that you probably do need like a remake now. You need to kind of like rebuild it for the newer generation of stuff. Like it's going to actually need a pretty major amount of work to like get it ready. Like it gets to the point where just remastering it and pushing up the next console, you just can't do it anymore. You have to like rebuild it from the ground up to get the graphics to a decent spot. And that's when we're starting to like, that's like, is that still a remaster or starting to drift into remake for the amount of work it's going to take somebody type thing?
Right. So
but
basically,
then, like,
when the game is, or when the platform that the game is on is obsolete, harder to get a hold of, you want to at least remaster it to get it available to more people. But once the technology is clearly caught up to the game, you suggest a remake would be more apt. Like, say for these Spyro remakes, for example, beautiful games. Like, they did a great job crafting these into a gorgeous game on the PlayStation 4. But 10 years down the line, oh man, these games don't have any smell-o-vision integration. We need another remake.
Exactly.
Smell-o-vision?
Smell-o-vision. I can't smell the flowers.
It's
or the
dependent
cinders
on-
burning from Spyro's mouth. I can't smell any of it. What the heck? We need another remake.
Wait,
Yeah.
no sense of smell? I think you have COVID. Dun dun dun.
Oh dear.
But
Anyway,
but
so-
that's kind of the point. Like,
So-
when those games become dated, either by the fact that they're harder to get a hold of, or they're clearly dated by graphics or lack of modern integration, that seems like a pretty good time for a remake. And I
Yeah.
think that's kind of one of the downsides, is that, you know, as Daniel referred to the recycling, you kind of have to do it every once in a while to keep it modern, which is the point of a remake or a remaster even.
But if the game is popular enough, that'll be fine. Like if it's a very good game that everyone loves, like you'll just keep getting it for your newest consoles, and like you'll want your kids to play it, and like you'll keep it tracking as you go down. Like it'll keep basically only games that are good enough, and that sounds terrible to say, but like only games that are good enough to have like
It has
people
to have some sort of beloved status or like a
beloved
following.
fan base, or like people that want to play it again, bring it back, show it to their friends, their new relatives and their kids as they grow up. They like, look, this is what I used to play. This is like one of the classics, and everything. You have to keep remaking them so you still have access to those. But everything else, it's probably not worth the effort to a certain extent, except as maybe like a clinical autopsy on where people went wrong at some point. And then like a reimagining sort of sits separate to that. That's basically the story writers are like, our imagination has run out. Like we've written ourselves into a corner. We can't like keep the story going where it was. We need to go back and restart. Entirely with the same characters and, write a new story in essence for them, like completely change, and you'll end up in a very different place. It's basically a separate series. They're just kind of piggybacking on the original name, which is why I find reimaginings in video games to be like really dumb. Like sometimes movies and books and everything, they're sort of like reimaginings, like generally are very rarely end well.
See, that's interesting. I find you and Henry are pretty much on the same wavelength for that one. Myself, I kind of stood in contrast to that. I prefer reimaginings to remakes, to be honest. And I think that part of that is, like, while I love the original games that these remakes are coming out for, like, I'm all about the new experiences. Like, I would much prefer to have a new game over a remake or a reimagining. Mostly just because it's something new. Something new that I haven't tried out before. Something I don't know every nook and cranny of. This is kind of a bad example because I don't have much experience with the series, but take the Tomb Raider reboots, for example. I tried the original Tomb Raider, and I thought it had some good stuff going for it, but overall didn't enjoy it very much. But the new Tomb Raiders are something new, something I got really into, and that's that reimagining reboot kind of status. Like, it's an opportunity for the developer to try a new avenue of either gameplay, mechanics, or storytelling, and I prefer that newness to it.
I mean, that's fine, but why don't they just make a new game under another name?
Yeah, that I'm
Like,
with you on.
They're just basically getting on they're basically just tacking this name on a whole new thing, and to draw nostalgia interest to it.
That's a big part
and
of
then
it,
they're
I think.
crossing their fingers and hoping that it's good enough to keep people with it, because they're essentially, it could just be called a new game franchise. And sometimes that's the thing that kills it the most, is you put a name of a franchise on something where it doesn't belong, and people from that franchise, thinking they're getting more of that, go over to this new thing, and they're like, this isn't this. And that's when they get like really panned. When if they just put it out under a different name, it wouldn't have been so,
And especially when the reboots or reimaginings are released with the same exact name as their predecessor. My two examples that I've picked are perfect examples of this. The Ratchet and Clank, you have to specify the game based off the movie based on the game if you were talking about this one, or the Ratchet and Clank, the original on the PS2. They have the same name, but they're vastly different games. Or for Tomb Raider, like I always have to say Tomb Raider 2013 when I'm talking about the game I like better, not Tomb Raider, the original. I will admit, I hate that. I very much hate that.
That is very irritating. The mislabeling, which is just.
I mean, sometimes a series can be reimagined, where essentially say there was originally a trilogy, and the trilogy ended, or by the end of it, they'd written themselves right into a corner, and there was basically nowhere to go with the story. And so they reimagine it, and they release like the new one, and it's actually like and it's, that can be okay, but like oftentimes reimaginings are just slapping a no name on a all but new story, or only a tangentially new story, and it can be like really grating if you liked the original.
I guess I can understand that.
Like, I'm not totally against reimaginings, but like, I seem to think of them failing a lot more than they succeed. Once in a while, you'll have one that is fantastic that I think was like, I guess, sort of the question that Henry asked earlier. When they do one of these reimaginings and you play it, would you rather just have a really good remake of the original? Would that be better?
I guess that depends on the state of the original.
And so that's the thing. Like if it's like a classic,
if it
like
really
a wonderful
needs the remake, if it's like 30 years old and it's like, well, do you want a new game in the vein of this or a remake? Like, it becomes a harder question at that point. But if the game's more recent, I'd prefer the reimagining just for the new experience.
Yes, but why don't they just make a sequel, like the next one in the generation, and then they can go essentially in many directions they want. Like specifically going back and reimagining the original and like the Ratchet and Clank one, just like you have to do that with I'm pretty sure the reason they did it was because of the movie tie-in, and they needed to change the story to tie to the movie.
Sure, and that's even said on the back of the box. Like, our fans aren't going to see this, but on the back of the box, it literally says the game based on the movie based on the game. Like, that's a big part of its marketing.
Yeah, essentially they're trying to tie in. They're trying to bring the game and the movie more closely together, because the original game wouldn't movieify well, I guess.
No,
it wouldn't. So that was the point. And they were trying to like reimagine the series and make this like new movie tie-in series where all the games go with their own movies and like.
Yeah, I'm not a big fan of that.
Yeah, well, that's what they were doing, and that's.
I would have been happier if they would have made the game like a continuation of the movie, or the movie a continuation of the game, or something. Not where it was like you play the game, you see the movie, or you see the movie, you see the game.
They kind of have that coming up with the next game in the franchise. Like the reimagining was kind of a new kickoff point, but they're gonna continue with that storyline. And as far as I know, there's not a movie tie-in. Like it's just a new game in that vein.
So fuck them.
So
I don't know.
like,
I want to give it a shot.
Here's the thing. In literature, this type of problem happens fairly frequently, where in literature you can only get so much out of a certain character. They can only grow and change so much to make it an interesting story. Eventually, they are the person. What you do there is you start writing stories about characters in the same universe.
Mm-hmm.
Like you start having side stories, or even the main books become only like half following the main character. They also follow other ancillary characters with them and stuff like that. So like the point is, why couldn't they have essentially like in the Ratchet and Clank universe, here's this brand new character and we're going to go along with this.
They actually
go with Captain Quark.
They actually have a new character coming up in the next game.
Playable or
I believe playable, but we'll have to see.
Aw, Jeff, come on. Dig deep, find out those answers.
We've got nothing on it, dude. Like this character got like a 2-second spot in one trailer, and that's it so far. It's like an alternate. It's like an alternate dimension version of Ratchet. Like
it's gonna be some bullshit multiplayer thing. Watch, where you can play co-op with your friends, and this is who you play as.
I don't think so. Like
again, yay!
I don't think so. Like it's in the trailer. It shows Ratchet and Clank jumping through rifts through dimensions, and at one point they get separated, and Clank gets paired up with a new character. I'm looking forward to seeing
Clank controlling somebody. I like it. I like their approach with this one. Now.
I'm looking forward to seeing where it goes. But
it's just like all the other Ratchet and Clank segments where you have to play as some very generic character.
Well, I mean, you can't really say that yet. Like, we haven't seen the implementation of it yet.
Down to the depth.
That's fair.
I do want to point out that I'm like ragging on reimaginings here. I liked the new Ratchet and Clank. Like I didn't love it like I did the original, but I liked it. It was, and I think it had a lot of things that were like that as a game, as a standalone, made it better than the original Ratchet and Clank. But they changed the story. I still liked it. I thought it was a good game, and I'm not like totally against it. I'm just saying that like a really nice remake of Ratchet and Clank, like they could have implemented new mechanics, the lessons learned by the time you get to up your arsenal, like into how the game played.
Yeah, I would love to see something like that. Into the first one
without vastly changing its
I think the original Ratchet and Clank
the story so much.
I think the original Ratchet and Clank is one of those games that is in the boat where it's a 20-year-old game at this point.
It needs a remake.
It's in that kind of time frame where it could use a remake, and so
the I guess the big problem I have with the reimagining there is that like the studio, whoever owns the game, the rights to it, basically said,
Insomniac, or is it someone else?
It's still Insomniac Games, according to this box.
Well, that's who made it, but it could be owned by some parent corporation, but whatever. The point is, they've decided to put resources into this new reimagining franchise, which means we might not see a remake of the original.
No, probably not.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And so, like, if they had done it on a side character, they could have been, like, following the new character in the Ratchet and Clank universe, and then we'll remake the originals. Here are the originals so you can play on the remake, and then here's, like, the sequel in another section of the universe with,
And if they would have gone with the approach of like new character for the reimagining part, then it would have made people interested in the franchise, and then a remake of the original games would have definitely probably made some crazy sales because people would have been like, all right, where does this character come from?
Exactly.
And then you just play the original games.
Like they could have done that, but basically what they're saying by doing this, we're not going to get a remake of those games. And like I said, I like the reimagining, but I love the original trilogy, and the fact we're not going to see a remake of those anytime soon, or maybe ever, is like...
Yeah, and the fact that
heart-wrenching.
Like, I never got to experience the anything past the first one. Like, I didn't get to play the other ones, and I don't have a good way of playing them right now. Like,
the other ones are so good.
Like, that is like, as we mentioned before, that is pretty much the primary benefit of these remakes and remasters, is bringing them forward so more people can experience them.
And right now it's roadblocked 2 generations back to be able to play any of those.
For the originals, it's 3 generations back now.
Is it?
Yeah, PS2.
PS3.
Well, you can't play them on the PS3 through the collection. Yeah.
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 So they were made for PS2. Like they're old enough now that we're in. We'll look
Another
at
example of remasters, by the way.
Yes.
I was going to say we're looking at but we can put that into the category of like Spyro and Crash have gotten remakes, and that's about the same generation, maybe a little earlier.
One generation
it's
earlier.
but
Yeah, but they haven't had any recent developments with games. Well, Crash 4 came out, but that was after they had
That was
made
because of those remakes.
Yeah, because people are like, wait, they still like these games. Hold up.
Yeah.
There's money to be made here.
Yeah, exactly. But like, I'm just saying that it's in the generation where like remakes are a thing. Like major remasters / remakes are like now becoming a thing for that generation. It's old enough now. And the fact that they've went in this new direction with this reimagining means we likely won't see one.
No, probably not.
That's the problem. When the reimagining gets in the way of the original one and it's not like markedly better, it's real hard sell.
Yeah. Yeah, that definitely occurs with games that, don't really need a remake. And for example, I'm glad that we haven't seen a remake of Super Metroid, because that game was great. It aged fantastically, and I don't think it needs a remake. So if somebody did a remake of it, that would be heavily scrutinized compared to the original. And, it just doesn't, it's not necessary, The same
it is if you want to play it on a modern console.
Well,
No.
you can play Super Metroid on the Switch through the Nintendo Switch Online. That's actually something I want
So it's essentially been remastered already.
It's not remastered, it's just emulated. It's the exact same game.
Yeah, well, that's essentially remastering it. You've dragged it up to the next generation, even if you aren't adjusting the graphics.
But one more
What
thing.
if they hold up? What if they imagined Super Metroid as like, instead of like the 2D side scroller, it's a 3D one, but you're like running straight ahead and you're just looking up and down, like you're
Metroid
in
Prime?
Samus's. Kind of, but it's not a 3D. It's still like a weird 2D thing where you only go forward and backwards, and you can look up and
Metroid
down.
Other M.
Maybe I haven't played that one.
Don't.
Oh, okay. That bad, huh?
I was gonna say, Henry. I'm like, why don't they just do a 2.5D like
Metroid Other M.
I have I know it exists. Never played it.
Don't.
Wise of you.
Yeah, it just says.
Apparently, the answer is don't. So whatever. But sorry, Jeff. Go ahead.
I mean, again, that's one of the games that you don't play it to play it as a game. It's like a bad movie. You play it to like, it's like you play it like you go into an autopsy of Rasputin. You're like, what the hell actually killed him? You're like opening up and you're looking at all the things that went
this
wrong.
is what killed the Metroid franchise.
Yeah, I know exactly. like it's you approach it not as a game to be played, but as a corpse to be autopsied. Like this giant corpse hanging around the neck of the Metroid franchise. You cut it down off the gallows. You pull it up. You figure out what the hell went wrong.
You're playing the game not because it was recommended to you by game critics. It was recommended. You're playing it because it was a topic of discussion by the angry video game nerd.
Yeah, that's yeah.
It's like the one. It's like how is the quote for like Zero Punctuation, something on the lines of, they took this whole library of games from like pre-2000 or whatever, and they like just brought them all up as a huge emulator package. You could get it you could download it on your computer. And he goes, while there is some real gems in here, most of it is basically the same reason a morgue keeps bodies around. Like, they're trying to see it's a way to see what the hell went wrong.
Why a morgue keeps bodies for checks and balances, of course.
What was the line? It was the same reason that medical universities keep like the brains of cancer patients and heavy smokers in jars to show people later this is what goes wrong. This is what went wrong. That's why we bring these things into the modern age so we don't forget the mistakes we already made.
All right. Well, moving on, guys.
Yes.
I have a question for you before we move on to our next topic. We've been talking about the cons, like intermingled here. But if you have another con that you'd like to mention, please.
Yeah, if there's some clear-cut con you want to bring up,
yeah, like Genghis Khan or
Kubla Khan.
Kubla Khan. There it is. I have a hilarious con because this actually happened in both the emulator and the Reignited. So I love me Spyro Boy. Adam knows I love me Spyro Boy.
Who doesn't love Spyro Boy?
Adam knows how much I've played the third game. And in the third game, there was a hilarious thing you could do on the original PlayStation and PS2 because the input commands qualified as different commands. This is going to sound weird, but listen up. What you could do is you could sprint, and then you could, as you were holding down the square button, tap the X, and while you were sprinting full speed, you could jump. So you just go like boing, 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 boing. And it was one of the few things I loved to do in the game. In both the emulator and the Reignited series, if you try to do that, it will cancel the input of the charge. So you will charge, and then you'll go to a complete standstill and just jump up in the air like a pretty little butterfly. And then go back to charging at full speed. It's like, what? It was just very strange. That's a small detail. But because of it sort of dissonance me from being like, this isn't a true like, remastering. You didn't really fully master it, which I find hilarious.
So what
another thing is,
you see that the charge jump was actually a bug, and they patched it out. So get fucked, I guess.
Oh.
So what you're saying, Dan, is that with a remake or a remaster, even an opportunity for them to fix something is also an opportunity for them to screw something up.
Okay, so
Is that
those things?
I'm gonna post. Okay, so I'm gonna post some pictures in here because this is what few things they remastered, which triggered me instantly. If you go back on my stream to when I was streaming Spyro, so this is the Panda Village, and these are what the pandas originally look like. This is embedded in my brain. I've beaten the game 7 times through, and I've already said on my stream, I said, how much do I like this game? I can get every single egg in the previous 3 worlds so that I can just immediately do the final boss and ignore every stage except Monkey, because you need to do the Monkey. Even if you don't get any of the eggs in the stage, you need him unlocked to go and fight the main boss. But
Spoiler alert.
So this is the panda, right? So you're thinking, oh, they're gonna remaster it. They're gonna just make it taller, rounder, give it a bit of detail. But they're gonna keep kind of like those eyes, and it's just gonna be a mild thing. No one's ready for this. I am so sorry.
I'm sure I'm ready for this.
I'm fucking apologizing.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
What?
Personality.
It's called
The pandas suddenly all went to the Weeaboo store and bought all the manga and anime out. What kind of interaction is this?
I'm pretty sure not all of the pandas look like that, though.
No, all the pandas look like raging nerds. I kid you not. This one is probably like the medium tier.
That's
something. They were probably going for like a race thing, like China or Japan or something. They're like, this is how these people must dress.
Ladies and gentlemen, it's the new Punch-Out. Going with a stereotyping, baby.
This one of my another painful one for me was okay, someone else is talking in my Discord. So so this one, Henry hates this place. I loved it though because
I do want to Can I cut in for something
Hi.
real quick?
Yeah, sure.
So this is like one of those times where you're like walking around without your glasses on, everything's fuzzy, and then you put your glasses on, you see what it actually is. Like, I'm taking my glasses back off. It was much better with them off. Like, holy that's what that's like. It's like, oh,
Ignorance
that's not
is
too
bliss.
bad. Put the glasses on, and the glasses come right back off. Much better the old way. Thank you.
That's funny.
Yeah. So I have
It's still interesting. It's still interesting to see like how drastic of a change in like gaming graphics have come in like what 20
Yeah, it's been a little
years?
over 20.
Yeah, it's just like look at that. That was like state of the art, the top one of the time, and then now the second one's like this is what we're able to do now. This is the attention to detail.
Oh, it's super cool to see that. Of
Just-
course,
just
our
wait for another
listeners
20
can't
years.
see it, so I don't probably don't want
Right.
to do too many of these pictures, Daniel.
It's
I
gonna be
know.
it's gonna be photorealistic.
Or
So
small
we have
vision.
this is Henry's least favorite, but it's the
Be able to
haiku
smell the
fireflies,
panda feces.
which I love. I love the haiku. I love the haiku fireflies. But Henry, the last time I told him about him, his response was, "God damn, they never speak straight."
Dude, those guys suck.
So-
I fucking hate
so-
that world.
So I liked it. It was just such a cool like idea for a
I mean,
world.
yeah, it's interesting, but fuck those stupid things.
But this added detail just kind
Yeah,
of ruins
Buck
the character.
tooth fucking little weirdos.
They went from the character being like, I am a scholarly person, I am wise of the world, and then they added a buck tooth to it. Why? Why?
Fuck them.
That doesn't
They
even
fucking hate
fit.
that world too.
It looks like he's got a toupee on.
But
The
I
bottom
do,
one.
I do think that that's a very interesting point, Dan, is that even though remakes and remasters offer the ability to fix stuff that was wrong with the game, it also offers the ability to break stuff that wasn't wrong with the game to begin with. It rubs you the wrong
Well,
way. Like
It becomes into almost a reimagining of what a remastering should be, which is kind of the weirdest way to phrase it. But it's because it's someone's opinion on how
Well,
they wanted
Daniel,
to update
what
it.
you're describing there is a remake.
Yeah, this is what comes back to
Like that just looks better.
this comes back to what we were talking about with film. Like when they remaster a film, they're just taking the original footage that already exists and just upgrading it to the next generation of, Blu-ray, from VHS to DVD. Like they're just upgrading to the next generation, but it's the same footage. You're just seeing it in higher resolution. But when they remaster a video game, there is no higher resolution. What you saw originally was what it had, and so now
Right.
now an artist or the artists have to go back in and like fill in all those details, and what you have in your mind for those details and what the artist that's doing it has in their mind are not necessarily the same thing.
No, and I completely understand that. But as you can see here, like the panda, all they would have
Daniel,
to do is
here's the
increase
problem with
definition.
it. Daniel, we are doing a podcast. Our listeners cannot see these things.
But what I'm
Fine,
saying,
it's for the ones that we're watching on
So we're
YouTube.
just
They'll
gonna
be able to
cut
see
this
those
section
cool
out
little
'cause they
pictures
can't-
that Jeff
Yeah,
is
they
going
can't
to
see
pop
the
up.
words.
Right,
So
Jeff?
like this conversation means nothing to them.
The point is they went back and changed some things that may not have needed to be changed or would have been better off, like, I don't know,
Take
different
the
than they
glasses
turned out.
back off.
Yeah, take those glasses back off.
Let's back off. Yeah.
All right. Well,
Lower the graphics. Hey guys, do you remember? Does anyone remember when Jeffrey was playing Fortnite with us? But his computer could barely handle it, so he had to set
I had
it
to play it
on
in
the
480p.
lowest graphical setting. And I kid you not, it looked like a PlayStation game.
PlayStation
the
2.
quality-
Let's give it the credit it deserves.
Oh yes.
I didn't know it had that lowest setting. Like I legit didn't realize.
So polygon.
It's probably
It was
been
so
patched out.
polygon.
It was like, oh my gosh! I'm like, really?
It was amazing. So
It was
guys,
great.
if you want to see some magic, you should try this sometime. Go to one of your
Okay,
favorite games, go to the quality settings, set it to the highest, and set it to the lowest. And, put in the comments, interesting things you've discovered.
Discovered a newer appreciation for high resolution and ray
Yes.
tracing.
Or a new appreciation for how low can we make something
How
and
low
still
can you
understand.
How low can you go?
Go. All right. Anyway, I've taken this on a complete roller coaster. It is to Jeff.
So to wrap up this topic, I have one question for you guys. Think of your favorite franchise.
I do identify with the
No.
toaster.
So you've got your favorite franchise in your mind. Would you rather a new game, a brand new game in that franchise, or would you rather have a remaster, remake, or reimagining of the game that you or of a game that you love? Which one of those would you choose if you had to choose one?
So for Henry, I have to say this is an invalid question because Crash Bandicoot got both.
I mean, yeah, true, but there's still other franchises that I'd like to see things for,
So his second favorite is what he's saying.
which would probably be
For Henry.
Spyro. But we still have others.
True. Oh, I don't think Spyro needs another game. No.
So myself, I know that I would prefer a brand new game in the series. I've often gone on the record as saying, like, I don't really care for remakes, remasters, even reimaginings. Like, I like some better than others. There are some that I appreciate more than others. But overall, new games are where it's at for me. It's why I prefer playing reimaginings generally, is because it's the closest thing to being a new game. I take, for example, the Kid Icarus franchise. That's not my favorite franchise, but probably a good one for the sake of argument here. My favorite game in that series is the newest one. It's Kid Icarus Uprising. That game is definitely one that is a prime candidate, let's say, for a remaster or a remake. Even a Switch port, for example, would make that game a lot better. But if it came down to that or a brand new game, I would take the brand new game, no questions asked. That's just where I'm at. I prefer the new experiences over experiences that I've had before, even if I loved them. That's where I'm at.
So generally, I agree with you. If like, I prefer them just to put out the next game in the series or like a new game for the most part. But that doesn't mean I want to lose. If I have to make a choice between them, I'll take the new game. But I would like to see the old ones at least you have to change
Porque no las dos.
Yeah, I know. Exactly. But like, I would like to see the old games like still be playable, maybe graphically overhauled a little bit, but like, I'd much rather have the new game. Like, just keep going with the series, and everything. That's what I would prefer as well.
Sure. What about you, Dan?
But like, I
sorry,
really
go
don't
ahead.
like the reimaginings because basically it takes away from the. I feel like it doesn't give you either really.
I can understand that. Go ahead, Dan. All right, Henry, what about you?
He did.
When your brain is just like,
We'll give your brain a
okay.
chance to get a jump start. Henry, what do you think?
That's a tough one. So like, I wouldn't mind seeing a remake for the Ratchet and Clank, like 1 through 4, because those were extremely fun. I would also like to see. I'd like to see a remake for the Jack and Dexter series as well.
yes.
Those
It
games were
deserves
awesome.
it.
At this
It
point,
really
they could
does.
just use a nice touch up with everything. Would I like to see a new game for that franchise? They kind of had that like not really a reimagining, but they had like an additional game that came out for, I think it was the PSP, that was just absolute dog shit, and I hated it.
Was it that one with just Dexter?
No, that one was good. That was fun. That explained what happened in between like 1 and 2, kind of.
Okay, then I have no idea what you're talking about.
It's like The Lost Frontier. As everyone will now go and Google, like, what is this game?
Yeah, no, I'm good with your explanation of it.
But it was technically a continuation of what happened after 3, which 1 through 3 were really good. Then they had the racing one, which kind of was like a spin-off. And they could have gone more into that, which would have been really awesome to do, but they didn't. So that's something that they could maybe touch base on. So I'd be pretty okay with that for those ones. And then like maybe like Kingdom Hearts 1 specifically, if nothing else, remake using the new engine or even touching up the combat system with it would be pretty good. I mean, they could probably do a reimagining and get away with it with everything that happens in that storyline. So, but
calling a story.
Yeah, I know. Right?
Calling it a storyline seems like such a simple understatement.
Yeah.
Go on.
But I think a remake of the first one would definitely do a lot of justice, because that one's very clunky and tough to be able to play. And if that's the starting point for the franchise, it's like, it would be nice if it was a little bit cleaner with how things are, especially compared to like the third one.
So it sounds like you're pretty high on those remakes and remasters.
Yeah. I mean, new games are always cool, but like sometimes if you can touch up on the starting point for franchises, it's a good shoe-in for it. Because if you like, say, a new game, like say Jak 4, that they were to make the next day, it'd be really awesome. I'd go back. The other games would play nicely, but the graphics would probably be fairly outdated for the actual gameplay. Cinematics are still up there. But if, like I said, if the cinematics are much better than like the gameplay graphics, then I think it's time for you to update that.
All right, I can understand that.
I also want to point out before Daniel's blurb here that that Jeff, like not everyone, but like most
Nintendo
of the 3D, most Nintendo, most like the 3D Mario and everything are essentially just somewhere between like a reimagining or maybe a reimagining or even just a remake of the original. Just again, it's the same story again and again with very few.
I mean, it is,
changes.
but let's be honest. For most main series Mario games, the story is not what you're playing it for.
Oh my gosh!
So
Welcome
that's like,
to Mario.
I do think that colors your like interpretation. You'd rather see the new game. Well, yeah, but you know, a new Mario game. Yeah, sure, it's really exciting. It's basically the old one with bells on.
Brand new mechanics.
One or two.
It depends on the game.
But still new mechanics.
Like Mario Galaxy into Mario Odyssey, those games are drastically different, but still Bowser kidnaps Peach, go get her. Like,
you get what I'm saying, and like
I
it's
do.
Like they are very different games, and everything, but like it's a little different than like a story franchise like Kingdom Hearts, something where like you're moving one to the next, and it can get kind of snarly. Okay, Daniel, your turn. I've interrupted you enough.
Is it my turn?
it is now. I'm declaring it.
Am I allowed to speak?
Speak, Daniel.
I'm just a poor peasant boy. All right, when it comes to remakes and remasterings, I have had my dreams fulfilled. I have had my dreams crushed. What do I mean by that? Good Lord, I'd like to show you the Sly Cooper franchise.
I was thinking about that one, but I'm like, Dan's probably going to mention it.
Yeah! Yeah!
So
that was a legitimate thought of mine.
Being
And I'm
the-
like,
You know what's really
I'd like to
funny?
see those.
being the not Sony kid, I assume you're talking about Sly Cooper 4.
Like, they made a new game about it, but let me get into this.
Yes,
I
please.
find that the games that I'd like to have remake are games which we have played to the point where we've developed skills for them and experiences which, to an extent, we like to go back to because we're comfortable with and we understand it to a level that we like to show off. Like for me with Spyro, I'm just like, yo, watch me just blow through this whole level. Done. Oh, that felt so good to do again. And to go back into familiar territory. Another good example I'd like to bring up, which I'm not a huge person into this, but groups like the Smash Melee. As of right now, Smash Bros. Melee is still hosting tournaments.
Yeah.
And they're still going. Why? When the game got remade or updated to the,
When the
Brawl
next
and things
game
like
in the
that,
series was released.
right? They changed the flow of combat. They changed some of the characters' movesets, and people that were, oriented to the original playstyle of Melee just didn't approve of it, and they stayed back with the older game and the older console due to experience and training on it and skill. It's almost as if preferring like a specific sensitivity to your mouse when you're in a shooter game, just because you are so used to it. You don't want to change it or try the new thing because you already have skill in it. Now that's sort of how remakes, and I feel remakes and remasterings are. You're playing games which you are experienced and fluid in because of the nostalgia and the comfort of it. When you want a game to progress or for there to be an additional in the series, it is typically because you feel that the game to you was too easy and you want a new experience to challenge you because of it. Like Dark Souls, in my opinion, does not need a sequel. Dark Souls is Dark Souls. It is a fine enough experience as it is. Now, have people made games that use different mechanics, unique things, and kept that Dark Souls feel? Yes, but I don't see many people asking, where's Dark Souls 4? I need more of a challenge, or I need more experiences. They enjoy the experiences that are as they are. So
They did have Dark Souls 4, dude. It was that fucking the Shadows Never Die Twice bullshit.
Sekiro.
Yeah, Sekiro.
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 As Yahtzee, a great fan of the Dark Souls series, once said, "The From Software game, for there is only one." All these games are made by From Software, and they make all
Neo
games
and Neo
in this
2.
vein.
They're all Dark Souls.
I mean, technically, I guess you
not
could
Dark
think
Souls.
that,
It is the From Software game, and there is only one.
I guess you could think that Dark Souls 3 is the fourth one, because isn't Demon Souls the first one?
Yeah, technically.
I guess so, yeah.
Oh yeah. Oh,
There you go. There you go. So technically, there is a
There
fourth
you go.
one.
Yeah,
You're
there is
welcome.
a sequel. Woo!
Yay.
In
But-
that case, no one's asking for Dark Souls 5 is your point, Dan, right?
Right.
I was just
And on another
sawing off the point.
another tangent, the Sly Cooper series. When you ask for a new game, you're asking for a new game with the expectations on yourself of the game being grander than the others, and you're not thinking of what happens if third person fucks up sequel, which happened with Sly Cooper, because they were like, "Yo, we're gonna make a sequel." It's like, all right, I played the sequel. It is easier than the third game, and it's simpler than the second. So it essentially didn't add anything to it. Best way to describe it: the demo for 4 was the first world, which in a Spyro game, in a Sly Cooper game, is unheard of, because usually they tried to make each world in like 3 and 2 to have almost the same length. The first 2 worlds, a little short, but generally the same experience, and really gets you to the feel of sort of the world building and the place around it. The fourth game, it was so short. It was so short of experience, and it just felt forced for time. And although it had enjoyable moments, it really
So
didn't
what is your
add
answer
much.
to the question? Would you either have a new game or remake or remaster or reimagining, or
I feel that
if you
If the-
had to pick for like your favorite franchise?
well, my favorite franchise did get a sequel. I gotta think of a game that I like that hasn't had a sequel. At their like first problem.
Well, I mean, it doesn't have to be a franchise with only one game. That's not really a franchise. Like, you can have more than one sequel. So, any of your favorite franchises, would you like another sequel, like the next game in the franchise, or would you prefer a remake?
I've been all the games that I've loved, that I truly love, the fact they have come out with sequels is a blessing in this world and day and age. Because I'm sitting here going, well, I can think of the mobile game, The Room. Oh, wait, no, they just came out with a VR game that is doing amazing. Let me think again. Oh, what about The Surge? Oh, nope, Surge 2 came out, and now, although the DLC for that's kind of sketchy. So, I would have to say I would like remasterings in the sense that I would like some of the games to have their basic issues that I have problems with to be fixed. I don't feel that some of the games that I love that have done so well need a new game. Or
then you probably want a
second
remake
attempt.
then instead of a remaster, because the remaster's just
remaster's
Yeah.
the same thing, right? So a remake. You right. Every time I hear remaster, I'm like, oh, they got all the kinks out because it's the master version. Wait, no, master version means it's the original repeated.
upped resolution in my
Yep.
mind is how I think of that.
Real quick thing I want to say, like, I find it funny that we're an hour and 20 minutes into the podcast and we still don't know the difference between a remaster and a remake.
What's this wee nonsense?
Well,
So
I
the
love,
other guest doesn't.
Jeff, I love how you keep using like what is it, remaster or something in place when you mean reimagining and vice versa. Like you're unintentionally screwing up the
I
word
probably
sometimes.
am. There's too many re's.
So yes,
So we all
if you
just lose our
survive to
brain
this point,
cells.
we apologize for when we say the wrong word when we mean another one. Hopefully, from context, you can infer.
So many asterisks
Oh, yeah.
in this episode.
I know.
Many of them.
There's more like you get to the page and like here's the text that takes up the first third of the page and the rest of it's just like annotations.
Leedle,
and asterisks.
leedle.
It's like when you get a text message and then the following 5 are like asterisk, fix this word, fix this word, fix that word, fix. That's our podcast tonight.
Yeah.
All
So-
right.
Oh man, this is a fun
I think
podcast.
that pretty much wraps that up. Except for
That's
you
the
had
topic, yeah.
the demakes and demasters. What's that
Oh
about?
well, that's a bit of a bigger topic. I'll bring that back.
Bigger
Okay.
topic. It sounds like a downgrade, if you ask me, to an actual topic.
It is, but it's a long one, and we're just about out of time for today, guys. So we'll come back to demakes and demasters.
We do have a
no.
short blurb, and this one is actually relatively topical, so we kind of have to hit it this week.
All right.
Let
me read
how,
it.
Well,
how
Adam,
hard are we
take it
hitting
away.
Oh,
How
I
hard are we
got it.
hitting this?
So
I'm worried.
my parents get actual physical like newspapers.
Ooh.
I mean,
I got
you know
mail
they do.
today.
Yeah, they get actual like here it is. They get actual news. So this isn't like an actual like news. I guess you call it a news magazine, a news. It's not a news. It's like a weekly news thing. It's a
Newsletter.
compilation of. But anyway, they have this little section in the business section. It's called the bottom line, and it just has these little blurbs. And one of these blurbs caught my eyes. I'm just going to read the whole thing to you. It's quite short. And it says, global video game revenue is expected to surge 20% to 179.7 billion in 2020. According to IDC data. So the reason they're saying it is expected to surge is they're still collating data from 2020. It'll be a while before you have like the stats for the year. Just
Yeah, they haven't all
like
come in.
we're all putting, everyone's doing their taxes and stuff right now because they're going to be due over the next couple of months. But like the whole of the taxes for the year probably won't even be figured out till like June or something for like the whole country. So that's why it takes a long time afterward. But so it's going to surge a 20% increase. So revenue is a 20% increase in revenue to 179.7 billion in 2020, according to the IDC data, making the video game industry a bigger moneymaker than the global movie and sports industries combined.
That is nuts.
I mean, it makes sense.
No, I want to ask you this.
I wouldn't say
don't
that
know
about
I don't know if
movies.
this is in the article, but does it mean like the movies
That
and
was
sports
literally all it
of-
says.
Well, do you think it means the movie and sports industries of 2020 or like?
Oh
Yeah.
yeah, because boy did they take a hit.
Yeah, I'm not entirely
Wait
sure.
a second.
So
I'm not entirely sure
So I think, especially for 2020, like that's very dependent upon like the state of the world. Let's say like COVID ravaging everything. Video games kind of flourished under that, especially games like Animal Crossing. And movie theaters weren't open for a long time. A large number of them still aren't.
Yeah, but movies still came out, and they still sold them all over the place for
thinking
streaming
the same
services and stuff.
I was thinking the same thing, Jeff, but you're forgetting something. He said movie industry, which means DVDs, VH. It's not movie theaters.
The streaming services.
Well, sure, but like new releases are a big part of that.
And they had new releases. It's this year we're not going to get many new releases because all the filming got stopped.
I mean, I'm thinking of like a bunch of Marvel movies we expected to come out this last year, and none came out.
Well,
so I know that's just one, but I feel like that's pretty indicative of a good number of movie companies.
Yes, but I mean, I'm not sure, but even given that, the fact that it's bigger than both of those combined,
yeah, like thinking about where we've come since like the 80s and 90s, like back when video gaming was a taboo, now it's bigger than movies and sports. That's crazy. And
that feels good, man.
Yeah, finally, like we, the nerdy kids, the losers of our generation of high schoolers and whatnot, now we're in the cool kids club, kind of. Well, the majority at least. Not exactly cool kids. I mean, look at us.
Rude. But accurate.
But yeah, that's a real interesting blurb, Adam. Thank you.
I just thought, it was kind of interesting that, like, even if it's just entirely,
even if it's just because of COVID.
Even if it's just because COVID did that, that's an insane, like, when you think about traditional, like, sources of entertainment, those two would be considered much bigger than video games, but globally it's become essentially mainstream.
Yeah, it has.
And I think that's just an interesting point that, like, we sometimes, that doesn't quite register with us.
Yeah, like, I still hold on to my feelings from high school, feeling like the outcast who liked Nintendo, but in reality, like, it's the mainstream entertainment thing now. So
yeah, I just thought that was an interesting note, and that's in like a major news publication. Like, that's
just the
something
fact that video games are brought up in a major news publication at all. Like, what does that say? Wow.
They've actually started adding a section. Like, so they have in the back of this one, so it puts together like news reports from a bunch of different sources and puts them all together. It basically gives different views on the same, like, an event happened. This is what all these different places are saying about it, just to try and give you some perspective. But it has a section for like my brain just blew apart. Like books that are coming out, like new books that are coming out, movies that are coming out, TV shows that are airing over the period of the like what to watch. It has like a section on this. They've added to it. They've added a section for video games now.
Represent.
Just like, it's not all the time. It's just like like the big ones are now noted and mentioned, and they have a section they'll add them to it. And that's never happened before. And so, at least in America here, I think that that COVID-19, the coronavirus, COVID-19 has at least sort of like the idea that video games have become a major thing globally has started to punch in to like people's minds. It started to become like, it was just interesting that was like something they noted in the, and so I just thought I should bring that up if we're talking about gaming, like in general. That was just like when I first read that, I was just like, oh my gosh. And then I had the same thought Jeff did. I wonder if that's just 2020 because like those two got really depressed, but like,
I mean,
still.
Backing up your claims there, Adam, like I believe it was 2019 when the gaming market, the gaming industry overtook movies in terms of revenue. So this is an upward trend.
Right. And like it jumped 20% in in 2020. So even if, yes, movies tanked a great deal, like if it was already beating them and we can be sure movies didn't go up this year, like it leapt ahead with a 20% increase is staggering to begin with. Like that's a lot.
Definitely.
It's only a little bit of a lot, yeah.
So it was just, I just kind of wanted to like the fact that it was brought up at all, just, you know, I thought was worth mentioning.
Guys, it's cool to be nerds. It's becoming cool to be the nerds.
Is it cool to be a nerd?
I don't know if it's becoming cool, but it's becoming more mainstream.
Yeah. Well, there you have it. That's where we're at right now, guys. We're getting there. Well, Adam, thank you for that blurb. And with that, guys, I think that wraps up our podcast for today. So, Daniel, you have a Twitch channel. Where can these lovely viewers and listeners find you?
Well, they can come on over to the Dance Warrior streaming site. That's not the right answer. I'm pretty sure it's
Twitch.tv/DanceWarrior777.
Yep. And I tend to stream after this broadcast on Friday. I'm trying to do Fridays.
It's not a broadcast, Daniel. It's not released on Friday.
It's streamed on Friday.
I tend to stream on Friday. And that's when we record these podcasts.
If you can't tell, guys, we're professionals.
Oh, yes, very much so. Much professional, very good.
Everyone's sort of professional. And then there's me. I just wing everything.
Yeah? What kind of games do you play over there?
Wings.
I play a lot of different games. I specialize in FPS, and I also do horror, but in the end, I like to play really bad games and talk about what makes them bad, and I like to play a lot of good games and talk about what makes them good.
Ah, yes, that autopsy thing we were discussing before.
Oh, yes. I go into that morgue, and I can't say this on the stream what I do to the dead bodies. I mean games.
Oh, my gosh, is that their liver? Oh.
They didn't just die of drinking. They died of eating and drinking.
Okay, we've taken that joke officially too far.
Oh, no.
Well, thank you guys. Go check Dan out at DanceWarrior777 on Twitch. Fun streams. Very, very entertaining host, guys. And I like your streams. I'm usually asleep when you're broadcasting.
Oh, I thought you just visited for 2 seconds to say, like, hi, I hope he doesn't think he's off on.
Hi, I hate your work.
Thanks, bye.
Hey, how 2020 of a response.
All right, guys, and I do want to say that these podcasts are available in video form on Volatile Upgrade on YouTube, and we're also available on Google Podcast, Spotify, a Stitcher, and a couple others under the Gaming Corner podcast, so feel free to follow us over there. Adam, Henry, do you have anywhere you'd like to send the fans?
Straight to hell.
No, Henry, that's not the right answer.
Bad Henry.
Right, Jeff. But it's warm, unlike this piece of shit place.
It's supposed to get so cold this weekend. Oh my gosh.
I mean,
that
that'd be cool too.
explains why the cat's frozen on the sidewalk. I thought it had narcolepsy.
I was going to say, we didn't have any listener questions this time, but if anyone does have one, feel free to post in the comments and we will address it on our next podcast.
Baby.
Or, whenever the next podcast we record after the question is posted.
Yeah, who knows? COVID could hit all of us and we could be dead.
And on that cheery note...
Guys, I think this podcast could use a remake.
Yeah, I know.
I think a reimagining's better.
Well, either way, we're going to hit you with a new episode, guys, next time. So thanks again for tuning in. We'll catch you next time here on the Gaming Corner podcast.
All right.
Love yous. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Don't forget, everybody, to keep on dancing. See ya.